Welcome to Geosynthetics GeoTalk podcast, where we discuss geosynthetics and affiliated issues in civil and geotechnical engineering. I'm Chris Kelsey, editor of geosynthetica.net. A few years ago, the International Geosynthetics Society revived its Educate the Educators program. The initiative was developed in the early 1990s to help educate engineers, regulators, and academics learn about geosynthetic materials which had begun to flourish in field use but were not really very well known. 20-some years later, the field of geosynthetics had experienced enormous growth. But how to engineer with these materials, how to properly specify them, how to design with them, had not become standard in college engineering curricula. Educate the Educators has provided practical knowledge for instructors to incorporate immediately into their pre-existing engineering programs. Still, the ETE program can only reach a small number of academic influencers at a time. Progress is being made in educating the next generation of engineers, no one doubts that. But as field veteran Robert Mackey reminds us in this week's episode of GeoTalk, we need to think about education in a larger context. We also need to look at how we, in the field, support professional development. My guest today is Bob Mackey. He's principal engineer with S2LI, and he is a longtime supporter of the field in many endeavors. He's former president of IGS North America, former chairman of ASTM Committee D35 on geosynthetics. He has been involved with terminology committees with ISO and ASTM. And I want to talk to you today about education. This has been a growing concern in the geosynthetics field about getting more exposure for students to geosynthetics so that when they're in the field, they're more readily able to incorporate these materials or understand how to begin to design with them. But on the subject of engineering, let's first look at what are we doing well. What can we say we're getting right?
Well, we're doing a lot of webinars. I point to Bob Kerner, mostly with that.
Sure.
The IGS North America chapter tried it and with limited success, but Bob has much more draw through ASCE and has done quite a bit of webinars. The Federal Highway Administration courses that we teach have been very helpful in the transportation area. And that's Barry Christopher, Bob Holtz, Dave Suits have been doing that.
Yeah.
So that gets some exposure in the continuing education aspect of it.
Yeah, once they're in the field.
Once they're in the field. Rick Teal's been doing design work on the ASCE courses, and the geosynthetics are mentioned heavily there. So I would have to say what we're doing well when it comes to education is the continuing education coursework, being very involved in conferences that have published, and we're very active in that area, very knowledgeable. So we promote a lot of education through that.
Yeah.
So those are things we do really well.
Yeah. Where is it we can improve then?
We can improve by doing design manuals.
Okay.
And if you look at the pipe industry or other industries, a manufacturer will give a book or catalog of their products, and they'll do another engineering design manual, which is a step-by-step process of how to design. And then you hope that when they look at the pipe industry, they design a pipe, they go, okay, this is the kind of pipe I need from that manufacturer.
Yeah.
And the engineer will use it as a basis and signify within their specification this pipe or equal. And a lot of the contractors will go and use that pipe. I think geosynthetic manufacturers really need to try to do design manuals for the use of their materials in mechanically stabilized walls, drainage systems for landfills, just a whole step-by-step procedure that they can go through and document from their design that would be submitted to the permitting agency or the state DOT. That would benefit greatly better confidence in use of the material. And when it comes down to utilizing any material, it's the level of confidence you have in it. In the continuing education courses, you go in at the application level. Here's this material, this is how you use it. Yeah. They'll show it through the design, and here's how you design with it. But the confidence really starts when you start in the basic sciences, engineering sciences, even the basic sciences like polymer sciences, where you learn about the material it's made from.
Yeah.
Then you start understanding its limitations, its advantages. And by that, you have a strong basis of confidence to build with it. You know where not to put it. It's like designing a beam. I go in and I design, say, here, we do a continuing education on steel beams. Well, you already know it's made out of steel. And through your chemistry course, you know the steel oxidizes. So you know that you wouldn't put it in a saltwater environment unless you protected it. Yeah. Right? So the advantages and limitations really comes from the basic knowledge of the material and then its application on up. And we don't do a very good job in that area.
Okay.
There are course books, Designing with Geosynthetics at Current, as an example. That is a book in itself on designing with geosynthetics. But we really need to work on getting geosynthetics in the fundamental engineering sciences courses and the principal courses. Yeah. So that if you do a soil mechanics course and they do shear and soil testing, that you add a textile to it or a grid to it to show how it changes the shear.
Yeah.
And we just can't seem to get our technology in the basic engineering science courses and the fundamental design courses.
Yeah. Is this, do you think, largely because engineering curricula is already so dense that it's hard to convince programs to add something, even when it can be as simple as, like you said, with the shear testing?
Yeah.
Okay, try it also with this.
It is difficult because you only have so many contact hours within a course, and you have to cover so much material that it is really difficult to include something new. If you want to include something new, you usually have to take something out. Yeah. What is not as important might be covered in another course that will allow you to include geosynthetics. Yeah. And when it comes to the students being tested for their engineering fundamentals exam, or fundamentals engineering exam, there is a guideline of what's going to be on the test. And a lot of professors make sure they cover all those topics that's going to be on the test. And what we're seeing is that geosynthetics really isn't included within the topics of even being tested. Yeah. So it's hard for them to include something that they may not be tested on. They want to see their students pass their FE exam and their PE exam in the future. Yeah. What do you think we can do, at least on the college level? What might we do in addition to programs like Educate the Educators? I mean, how is this going to get done? It's a lot of work, but certainly the education, the continuing education, as you say, I mean, that's helping fill some of the void. And we can do more even on that side. Well, we had a panel discussion yesterday morning. Yeah. And a couple things that came out that really kind of hit home. One is that it's not maybe appropriate to just hit the instructors. Yeah. You need to hit the deans of the colleges and say, this is important. Because they're going to have the most input on what's going to be in their curriculum and what's going to be possibly on the FE test. If they can get NCWS to change to include geosynthetics within the testing criteria. We need to be able to approach them and talk about it. We need to really also look at how students learn now. And there's a complaint about the millenniums that you can't hold their attention for more than 5 minutes. Like it or not, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
So if we can do videos on instructions on various materials or instructions on ASTM tests of geosynthetics, 5-minute segments of the basics of that, and make it available to students either on YouTube or through the Society's website, then maybe that will help and get people involved in doing that aspect. Industry, consultants, people in the geosynthetic field really need to contact local colleges and say, I'd like to hire your students, but we use geosynthetics and your course doesn't even touch on it. They're not aware of this material. And that's a key point, because when you look at colleges, we always talk that these are institutions of higher learning. They get this prestigious title, and that's true. But if you look at them as businesses, their job is to take a student, train them in engineering, so that they can be hired outside the college.
Yes.
That's the product they're trying to fulfill, demand by the industry in their area. If you have industry saying, well, you need to improve your product, you need to include different items, then, and if enough people say that, the word will get around, and once one starts teaching it, then it continue on. And hopefully, by including it in the coursework, eventually included in the textbooks. That's the issue on NCWS. We can ask them to put questions on geosynthetics on those tests, but unless you can prove that it's being taught within the classroom, they're not going to put it on the tests, right? And they'll search the textbooks to see if it's included. It's not in the textbooks. So there's a lot to be done. We need to approach the writers of textbooks and say, you mind including these items? Furnish them the material they include in their textbook when they do a revision. That includes example problems, ones that can be in the textbook and one they can use for tests. We need to look at even the engineering fundamental sciences and say, here's a test you can do on direct shear. Right? Or here's a test on your environmental class on liner systems. And here's the basic calculations they need to know. That could be covered within 15, 20 minutes of one class if they wanted to. And it was really disappointing to see that on the PE test, when it came to an environmental area, one of the questions is, please determine the leakage rate for a clay liner landfill. We have been using clay liners for solid waste landfills for 25 years. So things are not being updated. In a way, we need to get on NCWS and says, listen, you're behind. You need to upgrade some areas. And to get their attention, well, I'm still trying to work on that.
Well, it's a tall order, but it sounds like a lot of good ideas have come out of the panel discussion. Plenty of people have already had opinions to share, and I think it is achievable.
It's achievable.
It's probably a many years goal. I mean, we're looking, but we have to take an approach like that. Looking 5-10 years down. What do we want the education infrastructure to be for engineering?
Well, if you can convince a writer of a textbook, author of a textbook, to modify his textbook and insert items in it, well, he's only doing revisions maybe every 8 years. So you're looking 10, 15 years down the way to try to do that, even if you can start finding the textbooks now and approaching them. The Educate the Educators has the ability to teach the people how to teach the courses, give them, the instructors, confidence on teaching the courses.
Yeah.
But you're only hitting a very small percentage, and you hope that slightly grows year after year. So, Educate the Educators is a greatly beneficial process, but it only impacts a few schools. If you do the textbooks, you may have a possibility of impacting, say, 150 out of 600 civil engineering programs.
Yeah.
Almost immediately, and then that will grow.
Yeah. Well, we've got our work cut out for us, but we can do it.
Yes, we do.
Yep. Bob Mackey, thank you for your time.
Sure thing.
Bob Mackey is a longtime contributor to the International Geosynthetics Society and its North American chapter, for which he has previously served as president. He's also given a great deal of his time to major standards organizations such as ASTM Committee D35 on geosynthetics. He does his consulting work with the firm S2LI. Learn more about the company's work at www.s2li.com. For more information about the IGS Educate the Educators program, visit www.geosyntheticssociety.org. As always, we've got more resources for you in our podcast article. Visit www.geosynthetica.net and click on the Media tab. Thank you for listening.